A blessed good afternoon to one and all. Here again in St. John's Parish Church yard. Going to do a video of St. John's Parish Church. I will go into the churchyard. So as I said before, people visit this church daily. You can see the buttresses at the side of the church. St. John's Parish Church is an Anglican church. You can see the church vicarage over here. Okay, let me go in the church first and then come back out. That's the best bet. I was going to do that just now, but then it was between 2 months. I have to show you the graves first. But if I show you the graves, I may end up doing that, taking too long up there. The rectory over here. St. John Parish Church, first erected in 1645, destroyed by fire and rebuilt in 1676, destroyed by hurricane and dedicated in 1836. So I'm inside the magnificent Gothic St. John Parish Church once again, which is situated at Hackerton's Cliff. This is a part of Hackerton's Cliff in St. John. Hackerton's Cliff runs between St. John and St. Joseph. The other part of Hackerton's Cliff is to the other side of St. John, bordering St. Joseph. That gives awesome views of the East Coast as well as this one here. St. John Parish Church. You can see the mahogany pulpit, which is made out of 6 different types of wood. 3 that I remember offhand: cedar, pine, and mahogany. Looking up to the organ loft, and this is the organ console here. The chancel where the choir sits. You see the beautiful stained glass windows. So you can see the beautiful stained glass windows and the reredos, which is behind the altar. These Anglican churches in Barbados are very pretty and a sight to behold. The beautiful stained glass windows. So this is inside of the church. This is the organ here, where the keyboard is for the organ. This is the console. Sorry, there's no organist today to play music for us. So this is inside of the church, St. John's Parish Church. Hello, all right. Mm. This is the marble font, baptismal font. So as I said before, St. John is a parish in which most of the white Barbadian population originated from. Most of them, their ancestors came from Scotland and Ireland. This is in memory of the parents of Professor Henry Fraser, in memory of Robert Stuart Fraser, born 1903 on the 15th of October and died the 6th of April 1993. Parochial treasurer of this parish, born parochial treasurer of this parish from 1944 to 1959, and his wife Lauren Mitchinson Fraser, born the 17th of July 1911 and died the 26th of October 1994. Postmistress of this parish from 1941 to 1960. To love is to serve. As I said before, most of the white Barbadians population originated from St. John, and their ancestry is from Scotland or Ireland. The most noted ones are Professor Henry Fraser and his parents, who we just read about, and first of all, you can see the 10 Commandments behind the pipes here for the organ. Professor Henry Fraser, who was
these are original?
And also the guy, Sir Kiffin Simpson, the guy who owns Simpson Motors, he is also a white Barbadian from St. John. Simpson Motors and all the Sol gas stations in Barbados and in the Caribbean. Also, Simpson Motors is the agents for Suzuki vehicles in Barbados. They specialize in Suzuki, also Mercedes-Benz, Isuzu, and Chevrolet vehicles. That is Simpson's, all the Simpson group of companies. They are from St. John. They are white Barbadians. And the Goddards that own the Courtesy Garage and the Goddard group of companies. Courtesy is the agents for Nissan and Hyundai vehicles in Barbados. They are also from St. John, as well as Pastor Emeritus of the People's Cathedral, founder of the People's Cathedral, Holmes Williams, the famous Holmes Williams. He is a white Barbadian from St. John as well. There are some tombs beneath our feet. So this is the statue of Madonna and Child with the infant St. John beneath her feet. This marble transmits to posterity the virtues of Elizabeth Christian Pinder, wife of the Honorable Francis Ford Pinder, and daughter of Jonas and Christian Mercy Maynard, who, animated by the unfading example of her excellent mother, shone forth through life, one of its brightest ornaments, distinguished by unaffected piety, Christian humility, and active benevolence. After 10 years of uninterrupted felicity, passed in the endearing society of her beloved husband, and her tender frame and delicate constitution fell a victim to the slower but fatal progress of a disease which undermining her invaluable health and yielding neither to the tender assiduities of an adoring husband until the united skill of the most experienced physicians, nor the influence of a more genial climate, removed her in the bloom of youth to the regions of eternal bliss on the 9th of December 1799 at age 30 years. The statue of Madonna and Child. Marble font. Before I go outside, I forgot to show you guys the list of priests that are engraved in this chancel here, in this lovely church. Organ console. In memoriam, the Reverend William Leslie, first rector of St. John from 1653 to 1676, grandson of 5th Laird of King Craigie, and great-great-grandson by his grandmother of John Leslie, 8th Baron of Balquin. Alvin, in memory of Alvin E. Simmons, rector of St. John from 1951 to 1962. He was a diligent priest. The Reverend Dudley Moore, rector of this parish from 1943 to 1950. Canon and rural dean. In memory of Clement Culpin, rector of this parish from 1928 to 1943. In memory of Charles G. Clark Hunt, rector of this parish from 1904 to 1925. Canon and rural dean. And Evan McGregor Seeley, rector of this church from 1879 to 1904. And Charles G. Clark Hunt, rector of this parish from 1904 to 1925. Again, a look at the beautiful stained glass windows. My phone is not focusing properly. It has my lens. Something is wrong with the lens. So we're inside of the church now at the moment. The pipe organ. This organ bears some resemblance to that of the cathedral. So yes guys, we're in St. John's Parish Church at the moment. Yeah, good evening. This is the east coast looking northeasterly, and this is the binoculars for distant viewing. This is the east coast northeasterly. You can see this is Church View, St. John down below here. This is just below Clifton Hall. So this is a beautiful country church which gives awesome views of the east coast northeasterly towards St. Joseph and St. Andrew, which is the Scotland district parishes. So this is Church View, St. John, as you can see down below here. There was a club where you can dance, a dancing house down here years ago. So this is all the beautiful east coast. St. Andrew and St. Joseph, the two Scotland district parishes. And you can see a bit of St. John from here as well. You can see down to St. Margaret's Church, which is just down the hill here. St. Margaret's Anglican Church is a sister church to St. John Parish Church, named after Margaret Ann Haynes, who is laid to rest in this churchyard. St. Margaret's Church was built in 1863. So you see here the East Coast. The sundial and Paleologous grave. The grave of Joseph Briggs Mears, a native of this island, and for more than 40 years a resident in the colony of British Guyana. I am to be gathered unto my people. Bury me with my fathers. As I said before in the first vlog, I am a Mears. My mother is a Mears. My last name is Moore. I'm Danroy Moore, by the way, but my family is Mears. My mother is a Mears. My mother, one of my aunts, and two uncles are Mearses. My grandmother was a Levine, but she married to a Mears. So hence the name why she is a Mears. So the first two children, which is my mother's first two sisters, were born in St. Thomas in a place called Carrington's Village, which is just at the back of Welshmore Hall Gully. And the other four children, which is my aunt, my first uncle, my first and second uncle, my aunt, my third aunt, then my mother, were born in St. Joseph in a place called Branchbury. Branchbury, just away from Coffee Gully, Branchbury, Coffee Gully, the border, the same general area. Branchbury, St. Joseph. So, as I said before, most of the Mearses originate in St. Joseph, St. John, and one or two from St. Thomas, whose roots originated in St. Joseph or St. John. This is the grave of Samuel Lewis Mears, born 1834 and died in 1922. By grace are you saved, through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God. Ephesians 11 verse 8, erected by his children. You can see Martin's Bay, St. John, which is a fishing village. St. John is over 1,000 feet above sea level. Martin's Bay, St. John, which is a fishing village, just behind St. Margaret's Church. I forgot to mention that in St. John Parish Church, there was pew rent. People used to rent pews in there years ago. People used to rent pews in St. John's Church. And colored people couldn't sit down in those seats either. So we have come from so far. Only certain people could sit down in the seats. This bench is here for the visitors of St. John in memory of Barbara Cooper of Scarborough, Canada. Her ashes are scattered along the shores, handcrafted by the Cooper family and C.E. Edger. So let me show you guys, first of all, this is the map showing the tombs in the churchyard. I will start with the grave of Iris Branch Banachie, Ivy Branch Bradshaw, born the 30th of August 1974. She died on the 30th of August 1974 at the age of 91. Irish Branch Bannocky was a horticulturist. So it says here on the grave, and granddaughter Ivory Branch Bradshaw, née McConney, who died the 30th of August 1974 at the age of 91, and her daughter Iris Branch Bannocky, Silver Crown of Merit. So Iris Branch Bannocky was a horticulturist. She used to deal with plants. Andromeda Botanical Gardens in St. Joseph, just above Bathsheba, was established by her, Irish Branch Bannocky. She was born in Guyana, British Guyana, or Portuguese Guyanese. In 1914, she was born in British Guyana, but she lived in Barbados. And she founded the Andromeda Gardens in the 1950s. When she died, the Andromeda Gardens was later entrusted to the Barbados National Trust. So, Andromeda Gardens. So as I said before, they don't bury people in here anymore unless it is a by grave. Only planter class get buried here in this churchyard. St. John Parish Church is a very historic church. So as I said before, Iris Branch Bannocky married a Scottish man. She first married a Bailey first from Harry Bailey Observatories, which is in Clapham. Then she later married a Bannocky from Scotland. The grave of Robert Skinner, Richard Chase, Alice Chase, Stanley Skinner, and Dora Skinner. The grave of Sir Fred Gollett, grandfather Ethan Gollett, born in 1905 and died in 1996. He was the grandfather also of Ralph Thorne, who is the current leader of the opposition for Christchurch South, parliamentary representative for Christchurch South. In memory of Ivan Wilfred Weeks, born the 26th of July 1911 and died the 13th of July 1983, and his wife Winifred Ursel Weeks, born the 28th of November 1915 and died the 12th of May 2012. St. John Parish Church is Gothic. So let me go around the churchyard. So these are some ancient graves. And these are some of the oldest graves in the Caribbean as well. Here lieth the body of Ferdinando Palaeologus, descended from the emperor line of the last Christian emperors of Greece, churchwarden of this parish from 1655 to 1656. Vestryman 20 years, 33rd of October 1678. Ferdinando Palaeologus was buried standing up. He was buried upright. This church has some of the oldest graves in the Caribbean. The current church was built by Adam Straw Waterman, who was an African. He is laid to rest in the churchyard of St. George Parish Church at the present moment. You can see all down to Martins Bay again, a fishing village on the east coast in St. John. You can see a bit of St. John from here with Martins Bay, Newcastle, Glen Burnie, and that area, and across to St. Joseph and St. Andrew, all on the east coast. In memory of the Honorable Richard Haynes of Easy Hall Plantation in St. John, eldest son of the J.A. Haynes of Newcastle Plantation in St. John, who died the 8th of May 1937 at the age of 81, and Mary Howell Haynes of Newcastle Plantation in St. John as well, died the 22nd of July 1957 at the age of 97. She was the last of her family members to die. Another guy buried upright, Thomas Henry Seeley. He said he wanted to be buried upright so that he can see the view. Thomas Henry Seeley, son of Sir John Seeley and Aunt Isabella Seeley, born in 1845 and died in 1904, erected by his son Charles W. M. Seeley. This is all the Haynes family. This is the Seeley family here. And the Haynes family, graves, Robert Haynes, Helen Agnes Haynes, wife of Charles W. Haynes, Emily Lyall Haynes, born in the Guinea, which is in St. John, in Barbados, and died the 13th of February 1861 at Bissett's Hill in St. Joseph. She was born in Guinea, Barbados, St. John, Barbados, on the 13th of February 1861, and died at Bissett's Hill, St. Joseph, Barbados, on the 7th of October 1965. Mary Elizabeth Haynes, born Thimbley Lodge, Yorkshire, England, on May 4th, 1863, and died at Bissett's Hill in St. Joseph, Barbados, West Indies, on the 10th of November 1948. William Lyall Haynes of Clifton Hall Plantation in St. John, and his wife, Aileen Dorothy Alice Manning, born 1909 and died in 1983, and William Lyall Haynes, born 1903 and died in 1976. 11 Corinthians 5 verse 8. Second, forget that this is Roman numerals. Second Corinthians 5 verse 8. Forget about Roman numerals. Clarence Farrell Haynes and Gwendolyn Lyall Haynes. Charles Wynyard Haynes, son of Edmund Haynes. So these are all the planter class from St. John who own plantations. The Taylor family grave here. And this is the sundial here, overlooking Pothouse Village in St. John. Just below here. You can see the true epitome of country life in Barbados. Country life is surely the best, anytime, anywhere. We are looking southeasterly now to Bath Beach in St. John. Bath Beach, which is in St. John, also on the east coast. And we can see into St. Philip as well, which is southeasterly. We can see Concept Bay, which is a fishing village. By the way, the train that used to run in Barbados between 1873 and 1937 used to run all along the east coast from Bridgetown to Belle Plaine and St. Andrew. Run through Bath Beach, Concept Bay, Bath Beach, Martins Bay, Bathsheba, and end at Belle Plaine and St. Andrew. The train stopped running in 1937, the same year that they had the riots, and 2 years before the Second World War. The riots in Barbados were in 1937. They had the riots in Barbados. And then 2 years later, 1939, was the World War. Second World War. The grave of David Thompson, Barbados' fifth Prime Minister. He was born on the 25th of December 1961 in London, England, and died the 23rd of October 2010. He was born in England to Barbadian parents. Take a good look at David Thompson. He was one of the last people to be buried in this cemetery. He had a state funeral at Kensington Oval, which is just on the outskirts of the city. Kensington Oval is known as the Mecca for cricket in Barbados. His funeral was there in November 2010, and then his burial was here. David Thompson was born in England to Barbadian parents, a white mother and a black father. His mother, Margaret Knight, I think she's still alive. She's about 93 or so now. a white Barbadian, but his father is a black Barbadian. So David Thompson is more or less a Barbadian. He spoke with a Barbadian accent. He did so much in his time as Prime Minister. One thing he did especially for me, is introduce free bus fare for the school children in 2008. Looking over to the East Coast again. Thank you guys for watching now. Have a blessed evening. Thanks for your time. Stay tuned for more videos of Barbados. This is part 2 of my vlog of St. John Church, St. John Parish Church.